So as we put together, we've all heard the same kind of feedback, right? Is deals are harder today. And, whether you're on the listing side or buyer side, we have people who have shown buyers 10 houses, wrote 10 offers, they don't get one. And then you have, people who said, I've, got a listing, I've got 20 offers and I'm deciphering through all the things. And so what we discussed is we should have, some classes like this and change topics each month. And you can pick the topic, of course, and talking about using some best practices, what we're all hearing out there, and to share on how to navigate through this market. And so today was winning, these multiple offers. And Ryan and I were talking last week and we were kind of laughing, back in 04, when you did a multiple offer, right, there was usually 3 offers. One was a low ball offer, but you use that to get the other offers up, and then you ruled them out, and then your seller would negotiate with one of them, or you'd say, okay, best and final on the last 2, and that was it. Today's very, very different. People are doing everything and anything they can to get the house. So we've got some people who are going to share some feedback that they've seen. Ryan and I are going to share some things that we've heard. And then we want you to participate. And the one thing to always remember, and I'm going to turn it over to Ryan now to start going off this, is it's always up to your buyers, right? It's always your buyer's decision what they want to do. Some people have a much different comfort level on what they can do or don't do. So remember always that on the buyers. And Ryan, I'm going to kick it over to you to kind of go this, and we'll kind of go back and forth here, folks, and share everything that we're hearing and want you to share too.
Sounds good. Thanks, PJ. I think I was chatting with Kelly this morning. We had a Southington office meeting, and she said that honestly, with multiple offers, it literally is where all the real estate frustration is right now, both on the agent's part and on the buyer's part. And it's really about attitude, mindset, because someone's got to win. We just want to make sure it's us. Okay, so what we wanted to kind of talk about today was best practices and share things that we've all learned. We have a couple new ones that we've heard about, and we kind of want to bring it together. I think part of the issue is going to be the education to the consumer. So you may have not just the person who's written 5-10 contracts, but someone who's just jumping into this marketplace, looking to buy. They've heard it's kind of crazy. They just don't realize how crazy. And so part of it is education and communication to them, and talking to them about all their different options. And after this, we'll send out kind of a list of things that we came up with and things that you've come up with that may help them make sure their offer wins. Okay. And one point I wanted to make from a company standpoint is some of these things, like we're going to talk about communication. Our clients deserve a certain level, which I'm going to say is the highest level of representation out there. We've all been on the listing side, and we've all gotten the 10 offers where we just get an email. Okay, here's my offer, let me know. I want to take it one step further, that if you are representing the buyer, okay, for this company, you want to make that phone call. Communication is extremely important. And we were talking at the Southington office meeting. We're going to talk to a couple people here where they've actually gotten a multiple offer through that wasn't the highest, okay, it wasn't the best terms, but got through because a conversation or 2 or 3 or 4 occurred. When you build a relationship with a listing agent and you start to talk about things, they're going to tell you, most of them, what direction that offer needs to be. Okay, and if you're really working for the client, that conversation needs to happen. That phone call needs to happen. So the first thing in a multiple offer situation that we're going to bring up is communication. Okay, you gotta have that conversation with the listing agent. Okay,
and Ryan,
so
to add to that,
an idea of what's important to them. I know we were on the list side just recently, and there were 7 offers, and the consumer picked a lower offer due to a closing date. Okay, everyone was told to bring out highest and best, and was chosen by a sooner closing date. Where if a conversation had happened, I'm sure that the other offer that had a different closing date would have changed it. Most of the time, these closing dates are not set in stone. So part of it is, when you're working with a buyer, is to talk literally about each and every term and have a conversation. I'm sending over my offer. This is what it is. There's a couple flexible things. So we don't want to lose over any reason. So if they're flexible on their closing date, you have to put that in writing what their closing date is, but a conversation should happen and follow up with an email that the closing date can change. While they're saying May 31st, it can happen in June, July, May 15th, if we really pushed it, that we're very flexible. My client just wants to home. So communication is
Ryan.
extremely important. And
Ryan.
we have someone here, Brent, who has a couple examples of where communication worked. He's one of our transaction managers, and he talks a lot with agents and how they get things done. So we just wanted to kind of bring him in the fold and have him chat a little bit about 2 examples of where communication worked.
Hi, everybody. So talking with some agents in the office, there's 2 deals here. One's a conventional, one's FHA. For the conventional one, they had buyers that were very well qualified for the home that they were purchasing. So they put in an offer, and they called the agent to say, here's my offer. They went over the terms. The agent flat out told this person, we have other offers, and this contract has the best terms, but it's just not the highest offer. So she was very open and said how much more the other offer was above our offer, and it was significant, but there was no appraisal gap. It was just the high price, and that was it. So this agent went back to their clients. They were discussing what can we do to get this. So they decided to just do an appraisal gap of a $5,000 difference and up their offer by $4,000. And they called the agent back and said, will this work? Will your seller sign this? And she goes, actually, I think that will. Send it over. And in a matter of minutes, the contract was signed. So that listing agent told our agent that she had tons of offers. Some of them didn't have communication. So it was just an email with an offer. No one was really trying to get their offer signed. They just submitted it and kind of walked away. So like I think Ryan and PJ said, the communication was key in this. Just that little bit of a change. And $4,000 isn't that big of an offer price. So I think it was very manageable. And she even offered to the agent that the loan officer would call and let the agent know that the buyers were very qualified for this. The second one was an FHA. And the agent was saying that they've been showing these clients for over a year. And in today's market, it's very frustrating for an FHA buyer. They don't have a ton of money for a huge down payment. And the agent was frustrated. The buyers were very frustrated. They said, we're tired of looking at houses. If we don't get this offer, then we'll wait. And so the agent said that the home was an older home, but you could see that it was very well cared for. So the agent talked to their clients and said, well, if you really love the home, you're already waiving inspections. What if anything came back on the FHA appraisal, what if you fix those repairs instead of the sellers? The sellers, it was an estate, so the kids are selling the home. It was their childhood home. And, really the FHA appraisal is anything safety and structural, and all of that looked to be okay. So the buyers put that in there, that they're willing to fix anything FHA requires. The agent called, they actually got the offer. It was the lowest offer that they received. It was still above asking price. It was the lowest offer they received. And the agent has never seen that before, that the buyer was willing to assume anything that needed to be fixed. And the sellers actually loved it. They actually called the agent and had the buyers come over, and they were going to install a railing for them, for the buyers, so it wouldn't come back on an FHA appraisal. And I think it was big on that was communication. So I think communication and explaining your offer, having that relationship, from what I hear, that's what's key here.
Brenda, can I ask you a question about that FHA deal?
Mhm.
Did they put a dollar amount, like the buyer will fix up to X amount of dollars, or they just?
No, they just did it.
$10,000 in repairs.
They just did it. And I told the agent that. I said, well, what if it was something significant? And she goes, we walked the property. I'm not an inspector, they told them, but this is what normally an FHA appraisal would pick up, peeling paint, anything safety concerns. So at the end of the day, the buyer had to be comfortable. And like I said, they were already waiving their inspections. So, and they really wanted the home, and that's what got them the deal.
So I'll add, you can see how important communication is. And I also want to add 2 other scenarios we've had come up more than twice on both sides. One is communication, making sure they've received your offer. We've had a couple times where these offers have gone into spam and junk, and then all of a sudden they're like, what about my offer? And we never got it. Or on the flip side is, oh, I missed it. My seller already picked one, sorry. So right away, a lot of times agents just send this email and forget the call. And when we start about communication, is making that phone call to ask, do they have any questions of the offer? And what's really important, because as Ryan and Brent were saying, we just had an offer in West Hartford get accepted because the agent called and said, did you have my offer? Yes. Is there anything we need, or what are you looking at? What's important to the seller? And they said they don't want to close and they do not want to rent back until school's out. And this offer said, we'll close June 15th. And the seller said, I'll take that one. So making sure they have the offer, making sure they don't have any questions, making sure it came through cleanly. We had an agent of another broker called me and said that they were having trouble and getting it through. And when I saw the copy they were trying to send, it was not legible. So think about when you present that to your seller too. I don't know anything about it. The offer's not legible. They're missing documents, right? We want to make sure all that's done. So communication is key. And then having those questions. And as Brent said about the loan officer, I know Joanne's not on, but Ryan, I think she's up to 3 deals now that she's won because she called the listing agent and said, the buyers, they've already gone through underwriting and they are approved. The only thing they're waiting on was employment verification. That was it. And that put them kind of at the top of the line, because when you sit with your seller, right? Do you know anything about this? And now the agent's already said, well, I talked to the agent and the loan officer and they're approved. It's only employment verification, blah, 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 blah. So communication from the beginning on both sides is important. Try to learn something, try to talk about your client, but also make sure they have the offer. Heard it a lot that people have missed it, right? So
we had one a couple of weeks ago where one of the Berkshire Hathaway's top agents in Hartford County, the offer was in spam and they already signed another offer. So they had to go back and show a very aggressive offer. So again, once it's signed, there's not a lot you can do. But it's our job to make sure, since we represent the client, that they did receive the offer, that they understand the offer, that they don't have any questions on the offer, and then to be able to talk about, the things that could change. Like Brent was saying with the FHA piece, there haven't been a lot of FHA deals that have gone together because everyone is nervous about them. So, what are they nervous about? They're nervous about the FHA appraiser. Most of us have been in business a long time. We know what's going to come up, so to be able to say, the scrape and paint, the buyer's willing to do that. They're willing to put a handrail here and there to get this through. they're very excited. I think in that case, there was also a love letter. That's another way to win multiple offers. Now, again, there's been a lot of talk about love letters on whether there could be a discrimination piece to it. And it basically is on the seller's side, that the seller would get a bunch of love letters and then make a decision based on a name or a situation or whatever. But we've gotten a lot of deals through with a love letter that discusses, oh, we're excited to buy your home, blah, blah, blah. This is who we are. And we'd love to raise our family here. So they are out there. And I think when we were at Central One Convention, we had heard that, everybody has a Ring doorbell. Everyone has things monitoring what people say. And usually we told buyers, you know what, don't speak, don't talk in front of the doorbell because they're listening, and they are listening. But in today's market, people who are excited about their home. If they do like the home, it's, oh my God, I love this. Oh, look at this, look at that. Oh, I can't wait that Billy's going to love this bedroom. That kind of stuff can help your consumer nowadays, because again, people want someone to buy it who's going to appreciate their home. That's the same thing a love letter does. So just realize that there is video and audio monitoring in a lot of these homes. Use it to your buyer's advantage. It doesn't always. It's funny because again, we don't know the quality of agent who's on the listing side. Meaning they might just look at all these offers, create a spreadsheet, and here it is. Realize that a lot of things can happen between the spreadsheet and in each individual offer. You can go back to, this offer and try to change this offer and try to change that. A lot of agents don't do that. Okay. So your job is to create, a fairly flexible offer that hits everything that the seller wants and humanize your buyer. And any way we can do that. So love letters are out there. The video monitoring, use that to your benefit. Brent had talked about an appraisal gap. So let's jump on that for a minute. So there's a lot of that out there. And I've heard that, a lot of agents don't like it. It honestly doesn't matter what agents think. It's what the consumer thinks. And it's what the seller thinks. And I'll tell you, I've been on the other side, on the listing side, on the appraisal gap stuff. And the sellers just want the most money they can get. That's honestly what they care about. Okay. And we had one in Southington that an agent was away and I helped them with. These people the house was listed at $650,000. And it was their dream home. They had lost several homes. And they said, you know what? Normally we would stop at around 710. I don't want to lose this if it goes for 715. So we wrote an offer for it was 650. Okay, we wrote an offer for 650 with an appraisal escalation clause. I'm gonna throw an escalation clause up to 725. Okay, and it said we were going to pay $5,000 more than any other offer. Okay, so that really, when we talk about escalation clauses, some people put 1,000, some people put 2,500. We are recommending that you make it significant, because sometimes people say, if the seller says, here's an escalation clause at 700, here's some other people that just wrote 700. We prefer the people that were just straightforward. So we try to make the escalation clause attractive. So in me writing it, it was 5,000 over. So we did get the home for 725. And the seller wanted an appraisal gap that said we would pay anything over the appraised value, any differential, not 10,000, not 20,000, not whatever it was going to be. And in my estimation, the house was worth probably around 700. The people again had money. They were going to do the gap insurance, which we can talk about in a little bit. And they bought this house for $725,000. It appraised for $730,000. Okay, and we beat out 3 other people. We asked to see the other offer in writing, and we were shown it. And literally, the other consumer wrote the same thing, that they would pay anything over. Now, some people can't do that, but there was a good educated guess that it was worth around 700. So the only amount you'd be in the whole would be 25 grand in this case.
So hey, I take 2 things away from that right there, right, Ryan? Is one, if you're doing escalation clauses, $5,000 over. The next best offer you have in writing, not 1,000, not 2,500. That'll put you in a better place.
Yep.
And then the second thing is basically the gap, right? That appraisal gap. With all points mortgage. By the way, not every lender has this, folks. Not every lender has the ability to do this. But with all points mortgage, if you have more than 10% down, you can do this. Talk to your loan officer about how much that gap they can have, and they will pay. And so instead of coming up and say 10 grand, they might only come up with 1,000, but then they'll have a P&I payment. So it can save them thousands and thousands of dollars, and it almost eliminates the appraisal gap. And just to add that, Ryan, too, our loan officers are calling and explaining this to the listing agent, so they know how to sell it to their client too. So really, really important piece that they have to have 10% down minimum, but a lot of people do today. And that can make this a little bit stronger offer as that goes to 690, 700, 725 on that percentage.
Yeah, you know what? We just had a Southington office meeting, and we literally looked at the chart. And with 20% down, the property appraising, the monthly payment was just over 2,000. They had if you miss that appraisal by 20 grand and you pay some upfront premium, your payment doesn't change. If you miss it by 40 grand, the payment doesn't change. So in every situation is a little different depending on how much money down and what the parameters are. But if you're working with your mortgage officer, why wouldn't someone overpay if the monthly payment never changed? Okay, so you have to really understand it. And I would really sit down one-on-one with your mortgage officer, really understand that. Because that can get your client the home. If they're willing to pay 2 grand, who cares what the back end numbers are? Honestly, they get the home. Okay.
Right.
In the situation that we were.
And if they've gone through underwriting.
40 grand over. Yeah.
And they've gone through underwriting, they're approved.
With
Why wouldn't you want that?
prices are going up 9% and they're going to continue to go up for the next 5 years. I think that's a conversation you want to have before they find a house. Hey, we have some great ideas for you. If you find a house that you really love, you might want to think about a couple of these things. Because I think for a lot of people, they really want, it's their nest. They don't want to have to go through this. So there's a question in the chat. Can you explain the escalation clause?
Can I explain the answer? I don't see that in my chat, but okay. So escalation clause. It's in your zip forms, but basically it says that here's my offer, and I'm willing to pay X amount over the next verifiable offer that you might have up to a certain price. Okay, so in my example I used earlier, they were willing to pay 5,000 over up to 725. Okay, so literally if it went to 720 with a verifiable offer, they were willing to pay 725. If it went for 730, they were out. Okay, if it went for 680, they're willing to pay 5,000 more, 685. Okay, of course, when you put that number in writing, we went all the way to the top to 720. That's the most they would have paid to get the 725. So it's a form. We'll send that in the package we send out. but know what's out there. I would use it. It seems to be where the majority of wins happen, okay, is with an escalation clause. But again, if you have a communication with the other agent, they'll also to give you some idea on what's important to the other side. Okay, we've seen escalation clauses in there. We've seen escalation clauses lose because there are some more important things. You know, if you have an escalation clause, what the biggest thing people are concerned about is what? The appraisal. Okay, because I listed this house for $650. You're going to pay $725. If we sign your contract and it only goes for $680, we screwed you, because let's say I had a $685 cash offer. Okay, they might lean towards the cash offer. So in my case, it was $725, and we would eat any appraisal gap there was. Okay, and in their head, in my head, it was about 25 grand that they were going to have to eat, worst case.
And hey,
Okay.
Ryan, on the
Yeah.
escalation clause, one thing I was always taught is when you ask your client, if you wake up tomorrow and you find out that the house sold for $720 and you would have gone to $725, how are you going to feel? Are you going to feel okay to walk away? Or are you going to feel upset that you should have gotten it? And a lot of times when you ask your client, how would you feel if you lose this by 5,000 or 10,000? They would say, oh my God, I'd have a pit in my stomach. And that kind of gives them that, okay, let's offer 7. And then that's the escalation clause up to where they won't have that pit in their stomach when they feel good. So again, kind of communication to a client, but a lot of times people say, we'll pay 7. And when you ask them that question, oh, I'll pay $730 because I don't want to lose it over that. Hey, Ryan, the other thing I wanted to talk about is when we were out at 121, we heard from some great agents, and there's one agent said she was winning like 90% of all her
Yeah.
multiple offers by what she was offering in her down payment in the contract on the initial offer. So Ryan, why don't you share what this agent was doing, which is not for the faint of heart and not for
Yeah.
everybody, but I think it's rather interesting and good work for a lot of people.
So that's good point. Yeah, she was winning 90-something% of the offers, multiple offers she wrote, she would win. And she did it by writing the initial deposit check as a non-refundable deposit to the seller. Okay, so she'd write a check to the seller. They'd see the check and get it. It was non-refundable. So that's the part that, you know, they can't be faint at heart. Okay, but if you have think about what they're doing. You have a serious buyer who wants this home. Okay, the initial deposit could be $2,500, $5,000, depending what other additions are to that contract. Like if they're buying it, no inspections have been waived. Make sure you get a waiver signed to protect you, because otherwise we're all going to get sued in about 4 years. Think about that. If they're buying this thing with no appraisal issues, we'll pay the appraisal stuff. We're not going to have an inspection. You write the check to the seller, the $5,000 or whatever it is. Take it now. It's part of the deal. It's right. It's an earnest money deposit. They can have it. They can play with it. It's done. It's for them. She was winning 95%, 94% of the deal she wrote by writing that initial check to the seller. The seller sees that. They're like, holy shit, they're the only ones that did that. These people are serious. They want this home. Add a love letter to that and lots of communication, and you got to win.
And it wasn't $1,000 or $500.
Well,
They were writing some substantial $5,000, $10,000 checks. Think about that. Talk about playing on emotions.
Can I share something?
yes.
And I won't take credit for this, but I love it and I'm going to continue to use it. This was the suggestion from a new loan officer that I'm working with. And he made the suggestion for my buyer that because he was so confident in his financing, that we added in, the buyer will forfeit their $10,000 earnest money if they don't get financing. The seller loved it.
So basically just another verbiage on making it non-refundable.
Yep. So we are seeing that kind of stuff out there. Okay. You gotta be, and that's why, part of this, having this meeting is we got a lot of hotline calls is how do we make our offer the best? How do we think outside the box? You got to be different. I'm going to tell you, it sounds silly, but everything starts with communication. That's probably number one. Okay. Is have a discussion. Then you're going to learn some information, what's important to the seller. You're going to build a relationship, and you're going to have a raving fan with the listing agent to want you to win. And then what's going on. Okay. I thought the FHA thing, we haven't seen a lot of FHA deals go by. But what are the seller worrying about? They're worrying about the FHA appraiser. Oh, it's going to be a hard one. If they have a conversation with the mortgage officer that says, you know what, these guys are approved, they're done, they're golden, it's like cash. And then you say, you know what, if someone picks up on the peeling paint or handrail, we'll take care of it. Okay. These people got a house. So it's just, we're all trying to work together to help, the consumer win. Okay. Joe, do you want to read? Then I saw a couple questions.
Sure, okay. Well, Pat had a situation where they asked, part of the thing was the buyer was willing to pay the seller's closing costs, but the bank would not allow it. So unless, if you have something like that, you need to talk to your mortgage company, make sure they're in on that. If they have, if they're getting 20% down, that closing cost makes it not 20% down anymore. So there are things you have to think about.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that one. So that, again, someone's thinking outside the box, and didn't work, but
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, that can't be done.
Good. Now, does anybody have any situations, any things that help them win that you want to share? No one wants to share.
Tom had a situation before all this started going on, and the buyer and the buyer's parents wanted them to win. And they were, same kind of thing. They made, because they had a house to sell, they made the $50,000 deposit non-refundable to get them to accept their offer. And it was not our idea. It was their idea. And because they wanted the house that much. So I think that's why you really have to talk to your buyers. And, they may have family that can help them, but let them know this is like an all-out assault to get your deal accepted. Let's pull out all the stops if you love this home. Or any home right now, because they could have a home and not be home.
It's a war.
It is a war.
So I've also heard, I was gonna say, I've heard a couple of things too, where people are saying, how do my people compete when there is so many cash offers out here? And what I've heard, and it's not for everybody again, but what some people are doing is they're buying a $400,000 house. They're actually withdrawing the money from their retirement account and they're making a cash deal, and then they're getting a loan the day after it closes and repaying that money back into their account within 30 days. So people are getting very creative that way to position themselves that they can pay cash and get this thing done without doing anything else too. So the other thing too is what some people are doing too in that regard with quote unquote cash or loans is there is an ability, and All Points does this, to get that loan the day of, right after the closing. So they can get their money back that they're putting out for it and then have a mortgage, and it can look more attractive to sometimes the sellers. But going back to like what Ryan said, and I feel this, if a buyer's already gone through underwriting and they're approved, and it just needs employment verification, they're paying $20,000, $30,000 more. To me, that trumps just a cash deal, right? It's already there.
I've seen a bunch of offers where they've gotten accepted that they're waiving the mortgage contingency. So even though they're getting financing, it's really kind of coming across as a cash offer because it's not contingent upon them getting a mortgage.
Right.
So I've reviewed a couple of situations that were in multiple offer that they got it because of that. So I mean,
Right.
I think if somebody's confident, I mean, I know one of the agents in Avon came to me and she said they were losing out on everything because they were doing financing. She said they probably could pay cash, but they don't want to. And I said, well, are they comfortable getting their financing? Why don't you have that conversation with them? And then not make it contingent upon them getting the financing. And they got an offer that way.
So let's talk legally. What they're saying is they're not making their contract contingent upon it. A good
Right.
listing agent might say, show me the cash if they're not getting financing, and then they might not be able to do that. But basically, if you default on a contract, your earnest money is at risk. So
Right, right.
basically, it's a non-refundable deposit kind of thing. And so
And actually, I think one of the contracts that I saw, it was not contingent upon the mortgage. You know, they said they were getting financing. They gave the financing information, but not contingent upon it. And that they would, you know, pay any gap appraisal. I think the gap appraisals are very big because like PJ said, at the end of the day, the seller wants the money. So if somebody, and people are worried about appraisals. So if you don't have to worry about the appraisal and your offer's higher, they'll go with it if you're bridging that gap.
the other thing is just one thing, we were representing the seller in this case, multiple offers, highest and best. We chose one. As we were waiting for the winning bid to be reconstructed and put in writing, the people that lost came. Okay, so number one, unless it's signed, you haven't lost. So
Right.
persistence and communication are key. So if people say, I'm going to meet everybody at 6 o'clock, you should be on the phone 6:30. Did you hear? Did they? Oh, they lost. Is it signed? And so what happened in this case is we were presented with a very persistent buyer's agent who said, if it's not signed, my people will do whatever your seller
They're
wants.
Still in play.
They don't want to lose this house. Okay, and so you go back to the seller, and the seller was given some choices, and they picked an arbitrary number. It wasn't arbitrary, but picked a number significantly higher and said, we're not going to do that to these people unless you offer my this number. They offered that number. Okay, and changed a few other things to make the seller extremely happy, and we went in a different direction. So until it's signed, it's not a deal. So if you're hearing that it's going in a different direction and your people really want the house, be persistent, have that communication, and don't take no for an answer until the thing's signed. You know, how could we make, my people don't want to lose this house. How can we make it better? What was the issue? Don't be afraid to have that conversation.
And
I
Ryan,
think
that's
if
a
we do
great
all this kind of
segue.
stuff, we'll win more. PJ?
And that's a great segue because we just had someone win a deal by they said, we'll just leave our offer there as a backup offer for now. And we'll leave it there for a couple weeks. Guess what happened? Something happened that they ran into an issue. The buyers had a question. The sellers didn't want to do something. I don't think it was a big deal. It was something that was a smaller item that they wanted addressed. I want to say at the top of my head, it was like a chimney repointed that visibly could see it. They said no, they said this. The sellers got annoyed with the buyers and called the trump card and said, that's fine, walk away. And the buyer said, fine, we will. And the person left this offer on the table for like, they said 2 weeks, and then in 9 days, the seller just said, I'm just gonna take the other offer, I'm out of this. So persistence, as Ryan just said, and kept saying there and asking, my people are here, they want the house. And they said, we'll take it as is, no problem. And so communication, persistence, it works. And as Kelly always says, right, Ryan? And all these multiple offers, somebody wins. Somebody always
Someone's
wins.
gotta win.
Somebody's got to win. So
Can you clarify something for me?
Yeah,
So the buyer's putting in the offer, they signed the form already, and then the seller has to sign the form to accept it. Isn't it a done deal at that point?
when the offer is signed, yes,
By the seller.
seller, and delivered to the buyer.
Signed, sealed, delivered.
Okay.
If it hasn't been, it could be signed and you were going back to make copies and send it to the other agent, and all of a sudden someone writes another offer. As long as it hasn't been sent back, that you know, it gives your seller another opportunity. It's a crazy market, but I think the communication to the other agent is key, because you have to remember a lot of these agents are new, for good or bad, and you almost can, if you're experienced, you can almost take them and guide them to sign your deal.
Yeah, we actually have an agent working here because they could not get any help. And the litigation on our end was teaching her how to do stuff. And she was like, you need to talk to Jody.
So I have a question about the appraisal gap. Does that have to actually go into a contract, and does it only get purchased if the appraisal doesn't come in where it should?
Yeah, so was talk about how to exactly put it into the contract, depending on what the situation. So the gap insurance has to be very specific within certain parameters. So if, it may say that, you can get gap insurance up to a certain amount. So we're willing to pay gap insurance up to $10,000, or cover an appraisal up to $10,000. You got to work with your mortgage officer to figure out what that number is. So you would put that verbiage in the contract that the buyer is willing to assume any gap up to this price, up to $10,000, up to the purchase price. So you put that in, and it only gets purchased if there is a gap. So all of a sudden, it appraised for $5,000 over asking over your offer. You don't have to do that.
I think Paula had something she wanted to share or ask,
She had her hand up. I saw
or
it.
Tim.
Paula?
Yeah, oh, no, that's okay. I put it down, but I'll just tell you real quick. And sometimes during the home inspections too, if you have them, you might have to negotiate, and the seller, of course, like I have one right now, the place needs a new septic and they're forcing the buyer to put the whole thing in, which could be from 15 to 25,000. And the seller just won't do it because the house is being sold as is, which we know, even if it is, if there are major items that come up, usually sellers do something with those rather than close the contract. But yeah, this guy he refuses to, and I'm fortunate I have the buyer, feel so that he might have to do this, which is terrible. And they came in at a high price too. So it's crazy out there.
Yeah, it's funny because we have seen a lot of, I'll tell you, when you represent the seller, a lot of deals where they say they're not going to ask for anything. They end up asking for stuff. It's crazy. Anybody have anything else?
Eric's
Eric?
got his hand up.
Yep, Eric.
Yeah, I just had a quick question, Ryan. I think it was you that mentioned the, making the earnest money deposit out directly to the sellers as non-refundable. How exactly how do you verify then at closing, that you've already paid them that money? Do you just get a receipt or something, or is there
You
a
have
form
a
back you would
paid,
get?
yeah, so you do have to verify that your deposit has been cashed, so you can, with that, you can say they're in receipt of it, or you can provide a canceled check.
Okay.
Ryan, it's Carrie. Could you send out some sample verbiage of some of these scenarios?
Yep, we are gonna do that, absolutely. Good stuff. Paula,
I'm
must be your cat. Okay, if nobody has any, we're gonna send you guys a copy of all the things we did, potential options we talked about today. And then we're gonna send I'll send the escalation clause so you have that. And again, hopefully your time was well spent. And if you need us,
Thank
call the
you.
hotline after midnight, please.
Have a
Have a great day, everyone.
Yes, it was great. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you, everyone.
Ryan,
you.
Talk
bye.
to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.